Well, and speaking of season, it is the season. Oh my goodness, it's almost here, right? Here we are facing the end of another year, the end of the holiday season. And we just finished with Hanukkah. That just completed this week, and Christmas is Monday. And then that's followed immediately by Boxing Day and then Kwanzaa. So lots of opportunities for giving, right? Lots of opportunities for giving. And I don't know about you, but this past week I got the bah humbugs. Yeah, it was a little full, let's say. And as I was working on this talk and thinking about this season, I just realized, get out of your own way. Let that stuff go. This is the season of love. This is the season of love. My talk today is receiving and reflecting love. Receiving and reflecting love. I'm going to move that over a little bit. I think it's picking up. Receiving and reflecting love. And we know that to receive, there has to be a giver, right? There has to be a giver because it's part of this law of circulation. We know that that's almost a closed system. We have to have the giver and the receiver, and it just continues. It just continues. And the universe operates through a dynamic exchange of giving and receiving. We see it universally. We see it in our own biology. We see it in our lives. We see this give and receive. Our breath is a great example, isn't it? Our blood circulation is a great example, the way that works. So contemporaries, have you ever heard of James Russell Lowell? He was a poet in the late 1800s, and I know you've heard of Ralph Waldo Emerson. Yes, we've heard of him. Well, they were contemporaries. There was a whole group of poets back at that time that American poets, and it was the first time that American poets really began to come into their own, as opposed to all of the English poets that we had been reading as a society. And about that time, these two guys came up with a very similar saying. Lowell said, "The gift without the giver is bare." You may have heard that before if you've read The Science of Mind, because Ernest Holmes uses that quote actually in The Science of Mind. Emerson said, "The only true gift is a portion of thyself." The only true gift is a portion of thyself. But what about receiving? What about receiving? When I was growing up, I was told it was better to give than to receive. Anybody else hear that?
Yep.
Now, as a kid, I interpreted that receiving was bad. So it took me a while to break through that belief and stop resisting and pushing away the good that came to me, and to begin to be a gracious and grateful receiver. I've broken through it. I'm a good receiver now. But, what I was doing that I didn't realize, of course, at the time, was that I was refusing the love that was being offered to me in that gift. And I was stealing the joy from the giver. Don't you feel joyful when you give? Yeah. And if someone refuses that, we aren't so joyful, are we? It doesn't feel very good. So that was a pretty powerful shift in my consciousness that helped me to better understand this law of circulation. Imagine if everybody on the planet had an impulse of love and gratitude towards each other. Imagine what our world would be like. What we would see in others would be a reflection of what we believed about ourselves, wouldn't it? Giving and receiving. Oh my gosh, imagine what our world would be like if that were true. Have you ever heard the thing about don't show an animal your fear? Yeah, dogs, and don't show the dog you're afraid, but I'm terrified. Don't show, because they might attack you. Because the animal picks up on our energy of fear and thinks it should be afraid and it's going to attack. And that's the same thing that happens with us in our human energy. When we are not loving and grateful for each other, then we're going to get that in response, right? Jennifer's song this morning, so beautiful. Joy overflowing. I just love those words together. Joy overflowing. It's about overflowing blessings of God, God's grace in our lives. And as I woke up this morning, I woke up a few minutes before the alarm went off, and I just thought, wow, I'm so grateful. I just felt a sense of huge gratitude. I felt awake, which is not always the case at 4 a.m, but I felt really awake and rested, refreshed, excited for the day to be with you, to be here, to be a part of this loving community. And I just felt very grateful to be alive. Blessings overflowing, joy overflowing, gratitude overflowing. It was a wonderful feeling. So we know that Spirit is in, through, and as each one of us, right? We've heard that before. Do you believe it? Yeah. Spirit in, through, and as each one of us. And our purpose is to be a reflection of that love. Spirit is love and gives that love to and through its creation. And it's up to us to give that, to reflect that into the world, to reflect that into our world, into everything that we do. We have to be willing receivers of that good, of that grace, though, don't we? Because we are blessed with free choice. And we get to decide if we're going to say yes or if we're going to block those gifts. Ernest Holmes is the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living. He's the author of The Science of Mind that we teach from. And he said, the good we have must be shared with others if it's to be increased. The good we have must be shared with others if it is to be increased. When I was thinking about that, I thought of a flower. And if a flower is in the bud stage and it decides it's just not going to share its beauty, it's not going to share its scent, it's just going to stay a bud. Not going to share that gift. It's going to die, isn't it? Because it's not expressing itself. But instead, what does it do? It spectacularly opens and blossoms and shares its beauty with the world. It shares its scent with the world. And then what happens? The bees love its nectar, and it generously just gives its nectar to the bees as they come by. And the bees then go and share with the other flowers and pollinate. So that flower's gift of beauty and scent and nectar is expanded, right? It's shared. It increases its good by being generous. And that's what Holmes is telling us in that quote. The good we have must be shared with others if it's to be increased. The flower's increased by sharing. We're increased by sharing. We know that God is love. It was the first Bible verse I ever learned as a wee child in the Methodist church on a Christmas pageant. God is love. That was my verse. I got it. I get it. I still get it. And God's love is a great example for how we're to live, how we're to live, how we're to love, how we're to generously give of ourselves, of our gifts, just like the flower. The life cycle is receiving, utilizing, and extending our gifts. Receiving, utilizing in our own lives, and then sharing those gifts. Jennifer's voice. I'm going to use you this morning. Is that all right? Jennifer's voice. That's a gift. And she generously shares it with us. and has for many years, and I appreciate you. And the fact that you stepped into sharing your voice. Yeah. I know a lot of you have beautiful voices. Share them, right? Share them. How are you on the receiving side of all of this? How are you a good receiver? Are you a gracious receiver? Are you receiving them freely? Or are you limiting them with thoughts of lack, limitation, unworthiness? Is that blocking the flow? Yeah, I've got a good voice, but I'm not going to sing in public. Oh, I know how, I'm not going to do that. Are we blocking that flow? Are we not allowing our gifts to be shared? How do we extend? How do we extend our gifts? This season of Advent that we've been talking about is a time of reflection and affirmation, an exploration of our own faith. As the days have gotten longer, the nights darker, time of inward reflection. We see it in nature and we experience it in ourselves. We explore our faith and search our hearts and minds. It's a season to explore who we've been, who we are, who are we becoming. That's the more fun part, isn't it? It's like that other stuff's kind of sort of in the past already, but who am I becoming? Who am I becoming? It's my hope that we're becoming more kind, more loving in a world that so badly needs it right now. I'm still surprised every day at the unkindness that I am seeing out in the world, whether it is rude drivers, just general courtesies of not holding a door for someone, just things like that that I notice. I had an experience this past week of, give me my water, this past week of a manager who was responding to a subordinate who had made a mistake. Anybody ever made a mistake? Well, you could hear the subordinate explaining themselves, defending themselves, but the manager just kept attacking. And it was sad to listen to the classic pattern where the subordinate was just being attacked and the manager just kept going and kept going. And you watch the emotions deteriorate into anger, into animosity, judgment, control, frustration, and disrespect. And it didn't have to be that way. There were other ways to handle that. And I was just so saddened by it and recognizing that our world needs more kindness. Our world needs more kindness. When we respond to negativity and anger with negativity and anger, we get more negativity and anger, right? It's just the way it works. It's like the animal we talked about, right? Our spiritual practice as new thought practitioners is to respond to harshness with kindness. It's not easy, is it? Because our instinct is to defend ourselves, to be right. Our ego demands that. So our spiritual practice is to respond in kindness. We know that an eye for an eye makes us all blind, right? We've all heard that one. Proverbs 15:1 you may not have heard, and it's one of my favorites. It says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a hard word stirs up anger. Very true. Ernest Holmes again suggested, when we can see that life is like a mirror, tending to reflect back to us the images of our own thinking, then we should realize that by changing our thinking, we can change the reflection in the mirror. So changing those responses to those harsh comments to kind comments is going to change the reflection in the mirror. This idea that he presents us with is one of the simplest and most challenging of our teaching. We can translate that theologically. It's done unto us as we believe. If you prefer science, perhaps Newton's third law, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. This all sounds pretty simple, right? Why do I think it's challenging? I don't know about you, but I don't always look around the conditions of my life and like them. Anybody else have that? Am I alone up here? Yeah. Yeah. There's things that we'd like to be different. And the first response is usually to blame somebody for whatever that is that's making us unhappy. Maybe even to go so far as to demand that they change the way they behave, because then we'll be happier. But I know that these unwanted conditions in my life are temporary. I know that they're temporary and just simply a reflection of my then current thinking. They may feel like they're permanent. Some of them have been around for a long time, but they're temporary. And I say that because everything changes. Have you noticed? Everything changes. The powerful question that we ask ourselves in this is, how do I want the conditions of my life to change? How do I want them to change? It's easy to complain about what's there. That's the easy part. Anybody can do that. The difficult part is knowing what you prefer instead and staying focused there. That can be tough when this is dragging our attention, right? It can be tough to stay over here in what it is we want. Talk about that, not complain about that. That's our work. That's our work. Am I willing to do the spiritual work necessary to change those conditions into what I prefer instead? To stop complaining, to stop blaming, and to simply embrace what it is that I choose instead. Knowing the answers to these questions is our first step to change our thinking and changing our lives. Holmes talks a lot about the law of reflection and the science of mind, and a lot of his other writings as well. It's an important law to understand. And it's the law that just reflects back whatever it gets, just like a mirror. It doesn't judge. It doesn't say, no, I don't think you're going to like that. Let's do it this way. It's not going to do, oh, I know you want to pray for that, so I'll give you this. No. It's what's in here that gets reflected back. Now, in going through all of this week, it reminded me of, you're going to love this, liquid paper. Who remembers liquid paper? Yeah. Do you know how to tell if grandma's been on your computer? It's liquid paper on the screen. Liquid paper was invented, trivial fact here, 1956 by Betty Nesmith Graham. And she was the mother of the future, hey, hey, it's the Monkees guitarist, Michael Nesmith. Isn't that cool? She said, I always knew Michael would be a success. She invented liquid paper in her kitchen because she was a typist who made mistakes, and she came up with this idea. So she has the Liquid Paper Corporation. So liquid paper was a great way to wipe out our mistakes when we were using manual typewriters. And a lot of you raised your hands, so I know you've used a manual typewriter, because then IBM came out with a Selectric that had that fancy correction tape on it, right? We didn't have to use liquid paper so much anymore. But liquid paper was with those manual typewriters. And I found it a great metaphor for changing conditions. When we type something with a manual typewriter and we type the wrong letters, I before E except after C, we do it backwards. Ah. So we would take the liquid paper and we'd white over it and then go back in and type the right word, right? The right letters. And the image of the wrong letter is going to be on that page until we change the image of it, right? And the same is true in our minds and our belief systems and our thinking, our subconscious. The same thing is going to get reflected to us until we change the image in our minds, until we change it there so that it can be reflected back to us in our outer conditions. Now, today, we just use the delete key on our computer, right? Wouldn't it be nice if we had a delete key for our minds, our subconscious? Delete, 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 delete. Be a lot easier. But, have you ever deleted the wrong thing? Yeah. So we don't have a delete key. We have something better. We have spiritual practices. We have spiritual practices that we use to help us to dissolve those old beliefs, hidden beliefs, the things that no longer serve us, so that we can change those reflections in our life. The spiritual work necessary to change the condition. That's our delete key, our spiritual practice. Have you ever, I asked earlier about knowing what it is we do want and not focusing on what we don't want. Have you considered what it is you want in the mirror of your life? We're coming up on 2024. I know, a couple weeks away. We'll be here setting our intentions for the new year for 2024. Have you thought about what those might be for you? What conditions are you ready to let go of in your life? What reflections do you no longer want to see? That's what we need to decide. Otherwise, we kind of stay stuck, don't we? We kind of stay stuck. It takes courage to stand in the center of our lives and admit that what we see in the mirror is a reflection of the image in our own outlook on life. That takes courage. Because it takes responsibility, doesn't it? To recognize that that's how things are created. And then the next thing we need is confidence. Confidence to believe that we can make those changes. We can see different conditions in our lives. We have the power within. We're born with the power within to change our mind, to transmute our thinking. We do it all the time. Anybody ever been in a failed relationship? Did you love them in the beginning? And did you maybe not love them so much at the end? You transmuted the same feelings, right? We do it all the time. You can do it with the other conditions in your life as well. We just have to be willing. Knowing what we want and using our spiritual practices to change our thinking is a process that we use to change those outer conditions in our life. Holmes reminds us that any state of consciousness consistently maintained, there's the key, consistently maintained, will produce a corresponding result. The condition is a reflection of our consciousness. So when we're treating for health, wealth, relationship, whatever it is, consistently maintaining that. I had a prayer call this week with my practitioner, and she said, well, maybe you should make a plan for what you want this condition or change to be. And I said, yeah, I did that. Oh, yeah, but I stopped doing that. It's Lee's going, yep, in there. It's human nature. It's human nature. So I get it when you fall off of the horse, so to speak, and I fall off of the horse. We're human. We do that. It takes commitment to stay out of what is and live in what we want. This holiday season, I invite you to join me in being a giver and a receiver of the gifts of Spirit, to allow those gifts to flow in, to receive them all, to not block them out of fear or lack or limitation beliefs, not block them out of any unworthiness. Love yourself enough to receive those, to use them, and then to extend them out into your world. The greatest gift that any of us can give is ourselves, And we do it with every gift that we give. If we're shopping for someone, we're thinking about them, right? We're putting our love and our energy into that selection. If we're making something for them or baking something for them, we're thinking of them. We're putting ourselves and our love into that. This week, next week, next year, let's be that love in the world. We have a thing around here called Mindful Monday. Mondays are the start of the new week. Yay! You come here on Sunday, you get all filled up. Monday morning, you can get an email from Reverend Lee or myself with a recap of today's talk and some spiritual practices that you can use in your life throughout the week to embody and practice this teaching to help us stay more over here in the what we desire as opposed to over there in the what is. So if you'd like to sign up for that, you can use the QR code, can send us an email, you can sign up in the lobby. We'll get you on that list. So we got a couple of practices this week. Number one is look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. Spend some time contemplating the reflections of your life and decide if you like what you see or not. If not, what perception, perspective, belief, or attitude, perception, perspective, belief, or attitude would need to change in order for that image to change for you. Number two is create a daily affirmation. Write an affirmation for your new image and then use that every day to help you again stay over here in what you're affirming for your life now. As Lee says, up until now, it's been over here. Now it's over here. Affirm that every day. Stay with that. We're the image makers, each one of us. We're the image makers in our lives that we put up to the law of reflection to reflect back to us in the outer conditions. We cannot liquid paper the reflection out of the mirror of the conditions, and unfortunately, I wish we could. Don't have that delete button. Not quite that easy. But we've got our spiritual practices. We can change that image that we place in front of it. So this week, I invite you to create some new images. Create some new images and watch those reflections, the conditions of your life change. We'll close this morning with a final quote from Ernest Holmes, who says, in the long run, everyone who loves is loved. All who give joy receive it back. Everything moves in circles, in cycles of cause and effect. More is added to the much we use. When we refuse to use our gifts, they shrivel up. The divine flow is short-circuited. The one who gives for the joy of giving will receive back even more joy than she gave out. Ever as the volume increases, the circle increases. There can be no point of saturation in that which is infinite. And so it is. And now it's your turn. Comments, questions, thoughts? Excuse me.
Jill, could you please just repeat those four things that you said? What perception, reflection,
Perspective, perception, attitude. Was it 4? Belief. Perception, perspective, belief, or attitude. Anyone else? You're getting up. Excuse me.
So I think this is a comment.
Okay.
Um, you were talking about how easy it is to stay over on this side, and everything in nature is resistant to change. So I always think of a record. Now, this is an old, like an LP, not a CD.
They're back in style.
Yeah. Oh, they are. I guess I didn't need to make that comment. Okay, so the record has a groove, and that's where the needle rides, and that's where we hear the music. And the needle usually doesn't skip tracks, nor does it ride on the top of the ridge, because there's a ridge where the recording is. So that's part of that resistance to change. It's easy to stay in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to climb
Climb the
out of
hill.
it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Very true. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Comment, question, complaint? We take them all. We take them all.
What's the best way to get out of the rut when you find yourself going back to the old pattern?
Put your hiking shoes on. That sounds flip, but I mean, it really is. Um, the way to change is to change. And, it's like anything that we're going to do. It's easy to stay over here. It's the groove. It's comfortable. It's easy. Yeah, there's no energy. It's all good. But, when we decide to step out, what is it saying? Inspiration or, yeah, one of those two, inspiration or desperation. And we're choosing beings. We can choose to be inspired. We can choose to find a passion, a dream, something that we want so badly that we stay focused over here. If it gets so bad over here, then we've got desperation. And the universe will support us either way. Either way. You want it bad, we'll make it as bad as we can. You want to be inspired, we'll support you all the way up the hill. So it comes down to choosing to make the change. Not always easy. Yes, ma'am.
I would just add call a practitioner.
Call a practitioner. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Are you one? Yay! How did I know that? Jennifer.
I recently heard someone talking about something similar, probably right in the same line, about if you want to have more of something, simply behave as though you have more of something, right? Okay, that sounds really easy. But the question then was, okay, how do we do that? And they said to experience the thing that you want more of. And the fastest way to experience the thing you want more of, abundance, love, joy, is to be the cause of somebody else feeling that.
Mhm.
Which I love how it came back around with what Ernest Holmes had said about, that what you put out comes back to you greater, which is a law we all understand, but it just clicked for me that way.
Nice. Good. Yeah, we have to first become what it is we want. And when I first started this teaching, I thought, well, that's crazy. How can I become what I want if I don't have it? That doesn't make any sense. But what you come to realize is that if you want love, you've got love in your life somewhere. And if not, go with self-love and start there and build it there and become the love that you seek. If you want a creative expression, create in some way. If you want a new job, create in your old job so that the new job is ready for you. And there's so many ways that we can do that. Yeah, great reminder. Anyone else? No? All right. I will put this back for you. There we go. All right. Would you join me for prayer? Yes. Oh, just taking a moment to be still and quiet. And allowing our awareness to be fully present in this moment. present to our breath, present to the stillness and the silence, and recognizing there, the infinite power and presence, the one life, the one mind, that is God. All of it forever present, right here now in this moment, in this room, in this space. Every bit of it. It is not segregated or separated. It is all one, and its oneness is everywhere present, always. It is that infinite love that creates of itself because it loves so much and it gives so much. It is the givingness of God. And we are emanations of that power and presence, of that love. And we are that love. And we're united in it, in each other, and in the whole world, the whole universe. There's only this infinite oneness, this one life. And we each have our beingness within it. And so as I know this unity that we are, I know this love that we are, I speak my word for and about each and every one of us today, recognizing that we are that love and that we have the opportunity to go forth into our world today, this week, the rest of this month, all of next year, the rest of our lives, being the brilliant reflection of God's love in the world, of being that place of kindness in response to harshness, of being that love in response to fear, of being that place of centeredness in the divine every day, to be that reflection. Knowing that we are beings of choice and that we can choose anew in any moment and make a new choice to begin to see those new conditions reflected in our lives, whatever those conditions may be. I know for anyone that has anything on their heart this day that they are seeking prayer around, as they lift that request into this prayerful time in this community, that we as a community hold them in our consciousness, in our love, surrounding that request and just knowing that whatever needs to be released, clarified, embraced, whatever it might be, healed, that it is done so in this moment as it is turned over to God. That is, it is turned over in trust and in faith. And so it is with great faith and trust and gratitude, joy, and thanksgiving for this prayer, this community, this season of love, for the joy in our hearts, that I release this prayer into the action and activity of law, accepting that it is already done in my life, the life of this center, and the lives of all that are here today, listening later. We are so blessed, so grateful. And we affirm that by saying, and so it is.